So there I was with this sort of choice between, well, I either don't go on the adventures, which just wasn't a choice, or I have to learn to ride and then get my own motorbike. Today, I thought I would share how I got into motorbiking, what motorbiking means to me, and why I love it so much. And this all came from Carolyn from Doodle on a Motorcycle. If you haven't seen her channel, go follow it. She's awesome. And I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to have a chat with her. And she shared her story about how she got started and told me to do the same. So here I am. So hi, hey, if we haven't met before, I'm Kat. I'm English. I live in Portsmouth on the south coast of England. I've been biking for about 5 years now, and before that I've never ridden a bike or a scooter or anything in my life. I grew up in a household where biking just wasn't a thing. I didn't have any friends who rode bikes. As I got older, I didn't know anyone who rode bikes. In my teenage years, I didn't ride on a bike, nada. The first person I knew who rode a bike was my husband. And he had bikes, or has bikes, pretty much throughout our entire relationship. But my husband military, he was deployed a lot. And bikes didn't become a permanent fixture in our life until we got engaged, which was 2011. And the deal was, whatever we spent on a ring for me, he got to spend on a motorbike for him. I still don't remember ever agreeing to this, but anyway, I got my pretty ring and he got a GSX 1400. And honestly, we loved that bike. It was brilliant. And that was the first time that I really started going on the back of him. We went out for the day, we'd go and have picnics. And the first time we ever went touring, we decided we would go to Jersey, which is, if you don't know, a little island between England and France in the English Channel. It's actually where I was born, so we thought we'd go back there. I'd show them some of the places that I grew up. There's loads to see. If you've never been, highly recommend it. But that was the first time that we'd ever packed up our bag. We had saddlebags, we had to kind of put our clothes in, and I had a rucksack on my back. And it was amazing. It was the first time that it felt like a proper adventure. Admittedly, we stayed in B&Bs. We didn't go camping with the motorcycle. We could have done, but we thought for our first trip, we'll make it easy on ourselves. So we stayed in B&Bs and just used that as a base and went around the island from there. And we totally planned to do more of that with the GSX. Then our plans took a little bit of a change where we got full custody of my stepdaughter, his daughter. She came down and obviously lived with us, and that was cool. But she then wanted to go on the back of Daddy when we went off for adventures, which is great. But if she's on the back of Daddy, I'd lost my seat. So there I was with this sort of choice between, well, I either don't go on the adventures, which just wasn't a choice, or I have to learn to ride and then get my own motorbike. And this hadn't even entered my head. It had never occurred to me, even though I'd really enjoyed going off and being on the back of him and having the adventures, it had never occurred to me that I could get my own bike. And so I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm not sure I can ride a bike. I have no clue. And someone said to me, if you can ride a jet ski, you can ride a bike. Now, we've lived on boats for 15 years. Our very first house together, we couldn't afford a house. We had very little money, especially while paying child maintenance. And the only way that we could afford to get anything together was we bought a really run-down, trashed, really cheap boat. It was that small that I couldn't stand up in it. I'm 5'11", and I could not stand up in this boat. My husband's actually shorter than me, so he could, but only just. I think we got about 5'9.5" headroom in there, so I had to crouch. It was horrible. We spent the next 15 years sort of doing up the boats and selling them for more money than we paid for them, then buying a slightly bigger, derelict, rundown boat, doing that up. We spent most of the last few years doing up boats. I digress. How did I get onto boats? Oh, yeah. So part of the time while we were living on a boat, somebody had lent us a jet ski. So I actually had spent a fair amount of time riding a jet ski. So somebody said, if you can ride a jet ski, you can ride a bike, which gave me a little bit more confidence. I was like, okay, I could do that. So I signed up for my CBT, which is like literally a one day. Now, I was 34 at the time. I'd never ridden any other form of bike or scooter or anything. I walked in for the CBT and I got on a bike. I got on a 600 Bandit. We were going round in circles around the car park. And the guy was like, "Are you sure this is the first time you've ever on a bike?" And I was like, "Yeah, this is great. I can do this. I could turn around corners and do all this stuff." And he was like, "Right, you're good at this." After about 20 minutes, like, "Come out on the road with me." And I was like, are you sure? I might die. He's like, "No, you won't die. Ride for yourself. If I go at a junction, you wait until it's cleared till you follow me." And where the car park, basically, where the CBT school was taking place in, there was a really straight road. And then at the end of that was a massive, busy roundabout. And we got out the CBT school fine. and we set off down the straight road, and then he was leading, and then we got to the roundabout. He was like, right, you're going to take the third exit, which was basically a right. And he went off round the roundabout, and I went off round the roundabout, and then turned out I didn't know how to go right, because all the turns we've been doing going around the car park had been left, and I could do them fine, and I couldn't figure out how to get the bike to go right. So I'm sort of trying to steer the thing, didn't understand how to lean, I had no clue. And I could hear him in my helmet, but I couldn't talk back to him. He was like, just follow your head, lean, follow your head. Like, look where you want to go. I'm looking out the corner of my eye while staring at what's happening straight in front of me, because I didn't understand about the whole head thing and follow where you're going or anything like that. I don't know how I managed to make it around that roundabout, because I was pretty much on the pavement as we went round to the right. But I did. And the day got better, and I got better at going right and left. I was still a bit shaky at times, but I passed my CBT. And so then I liked it that much that I signed up for direct access. Because I was determined by this point. I can do this, I'm going to get a bike, and we can all go off and have adventures together as a family. Are you going to give me the ball so I can throw it? Or are you just going to sit there and pant? Away. Good boy. This is Mac, our dog. He's a 3-year-old Cocker Spaniel. Sometimes he does come on rides with us. We have a little doggy backpack and he sits on the back with us, but he's not coming on my first ride on the ZX6R. So he's going to stay here. So I'm going to be throwing the ball for him throughout this video, just to keep him occupied and give him a bit of workout before I go off and have an adventure. So I signed up for direct access, and that took about 4 days it was pretty much intensive motorcycle training. I did that on the 600 Bandit as well. And at the end of that, you have your test. So the test is split into 2 parts. You have a road riding phase, and then you have your slow manoeuvring and emergency stop phase and going around the cones and all that bit. Passed the road riding phase fine, which looking back, I do not understand how I passed that, but I did. And then I did the emergency stop fine. I did the moving of the bike bit, which is ridiculous, because now I can't move like unless I'm sitting on it, and I can paddle. An advantage of being tall, I can get my legs down on both sides and I can paddle things. I can't get off and do what guys seem to do and just move the bike. I've never learned that trick at all. I don't have like really pathetic arm strength. My legs are really strong, and I guess there's got to be a trick to moving bikes, but I still haven't figured that out yet. But I managed to do all of that on my test anyway. And the bit I failed on was the bit that initially I was really good at, which was going round the cones. And I was going around the cones. I think you've got to go up and back twice, so 4 times up and down these cones. And on like the second one, as I was going round to come back again, I got it totally wrong, put my foot down, which is an instant fail, which was really frustrating. So I kind of went home and I sulked a bit. And then I decided that no, I really did want to get a bike, and I wanted to go off and do the adventures. And by this point, you know, my daughter and my husband were really excited about all the adventures we could do, and I didn't want to let them down. So I booked in for my test again. We didn't have a bike at this point, so I had no way of practicing. And I did the road riding phase fine again, and then did all the slow manoeuvring bits, and then the last bit with the cones thing. I was proper psyching myself out about this. I was really worried about it. And the only way I could come up with to distract myself was to sing. Now, I can't sing, I can't carry a tune, but I was in my helmet, and I figured I was in my own little world and nobody could hear me. So I started singing The Little Mermaid Under the Sea. Now, I don't know what that has to do with anything to do with motorbiking, but I'm going up and down these cones quite happily, singing Under the Sea at the top of my voice. And I don't think anyone can hear me until I take off my helmet at the end, really pleased, because I've gone up and back and I've done it all, and I'm pretty sure I passed. And the instructor, my instructor, and the guy who's doing the examination are just dying. They're wetting themselves because the entire test centre has stopped because I'm singing Under the Sea that loudly that you can hear it out of my helmet over the noise of the bike. And I'm totally oblivious. So embarrassing, but I passed, which made up for it slightly. So even now, I figured that was why I should start motovlogging, because even now I talk to myself, I tell myself off, I tell other drivers off, I sing to myself. I won't be doing that on camera because seriously, I cannot sing. Every now and then I get drunk enough to do karaoke, and then I'm reminded that I have many talents. Carrying a tune is not one of them. So that's how I passed my test. And then my very, very first bike was a Suzuki Bandit, funnily enough, because that's the only bike I'd ever ridden. I knew I could ride it. So we got a slightly newer one. We got a 650 Bandit. And I loved it. I loved the colour. It was epic until I got on it and realised I couldn't actually ride it. I mean, I could ride it, but I was so nervous and anxious and underconfident. turning out of junctions. I was doing that at like 3 miles an hour, and just generally being safe on the road, because if you know, other drivers or other road users have a reasonable expectation that you won't just slam on in the middle of a road, or you know, you'll turn at a certain speed. And I was dangerous, really dangerous, and you know, it was a little embarrassing to admit, but in all honesty, I was. And that knocked my confidence so badly that I went out with my husband a couple of times, but I wasn't really enjoying it until in the end he would ride my bike to an industrial estate down our road, and he'd ride it there of an evening, and he'd sit there, bless him, he'd sit there in the car and read a book or read a paper or do some work, and I would just practice going round corners, stopping at junctions, pulling away. It was the slow stuff that I was really underconfident with. And I practiced that for hours until I felt confident enough to go on the road with him. And we did a few rides out, and we really enjoyed it. We all went out with the family, and we had a few picnics, and it was getting really good. And I was going down a dual carriageway. I'd had my bike, I don't know, probably by this point, 3 or 4 months, but we'd only ridden it a few times. And it was just me and my husband. And I was overtaking a van. So I was in the fast lane on 2-lane stretch of road. And I was doing maybe 70, overtaking this van. My husband was behind me. And another bike shot past me. Both of us were in the fast lane, and he must have been doing, if I was doing 70, he must have been going over 100 miles an hour. He was going like the clappers. And the bit that really shook me up is I had not seen him. Now, my husband, we have a headset on me, so we're talking to it all the time, and normally he's pointing out stuff just in case I haven't seen cars pulling out or cars that could pull out and all this stuff. And because I happened to move from the middle of the lane sort of towards the inside, because I was getting ready to pull back in front of the van that I'd just overtaken, and I happened to be moving in, he thought, because he was moving in to let the other bike go past, he thought I'd seen him, so he didn't bother pointing him out to me. And I hadn't, and it really, really shook me up to the point that I then didn't get back on a bike for over a year. And I felt so guilty because I felt like I was letting my family down. My daughter was like, please, you know, I was like, kind of making excuses. It's a bit pathetic looking back at it now, but I was really nervous, really, really underconfident. And I didn't know anybody else who rode bikes other than my husband. And he'd been riding for that long that he'd forgotten what it was like to be a beginner. And I think also when you learn something as an adult, you have slightly more fear than you do if you learn it when you're a teenager or, you know, a young adult. I was really nervous, and I didn't have anybody to talk to sort of work the fear out or get over it or get advice or anything. And I didn't really think to look on YouTube, I'll be honest, at the time. It didn't occur to me to look to YouTube for help for a community or for other people who might be experiencing something similar. I just kind of suffered it on my own and just didn't get on the bike. All right, good boy. So that all happened, and then my mother-in-law got really, really sick and sadly passed away. And that was this horrible time where it was just an awful lot of stress on all of us. And my husband was devastated, as you can imagine. I mean, we were all devastated, but it was his mum, and yeah, he was gutted. And to cheer him up, I took him to a Triumph dealership down our road. I should point out, she didn't pass away, and I took him immediately to a Triumph dealership. There was a period of weeks in the middle. But I thought I'd try and cheer him up. He'd been on about changing his GSX for a different type of bike. We're just going to have a look at them. And we walked in. The first thing we saw was a brand new, black, beautiful Triumph Scrambler. And I saw his face. He fell in love like that. To be fair, I fell in love like that. It was just a stunning bike. We've still got it. I love the bike. And it was way above our price bracket, way above what we were even thinking about affording. But he was just madly in love with it, and I wanted to make him happy. So we dug into our savings and we bought him this Triumph Scrambler. And he rode it, and he kept saying to me, it's easy to ride. It's so much easier to ride than your Bandit. Just have a go. And in the end, I had a go because I loved it. I thought it was such a pretty bike. I fell in love with it as well. It was, yeah, I really, really liked the Scrambler. So we bought me a different one. Obviously bought me a second one. It was a lot older than my one, but I still loved it. It was beautiful. And those became our touring bikes. And now we had 2 touring bikes. And I got excited about the idea of going traveling with a bike again. I don't mean like for months and months, because our daughter was still, well, she's in college at this point. We couldn't disappear off over the horizon. We both had jobs, but just going off for the weekend or for a week for our holiday or whatever. Like, yeah, we could go and have adventures.
I think it's fair to say that motorbiking has completely changed our lives. Since then, I've quit my job, we've got a motorhome, and now we tour Europe with our motorbikes. We've been to over 15 countries, and I have no clue how many miles we've ridden, but it has been an epic adventure. In order to stop this video getting crazy long, I'm going to split that into a second video all about our motorhoming with the motorbiking adventures. So if you're interested in watching that, then I'll leave the link here for you.
It's funny, a lot of people ask me why I love motorbiking so much. I love the fact that biking is like an equalizer. It doesn't matter how much you earn. It doesn't really matter your gender. It doesn't matter how tall you are or how pretty you are or how clever you are or how anything. You get on a bike and another biker will say hello to you. You know, you pull up at a cafe, other bikers will come and talk to you or ask about your bike or ask where you've been. And it's very similar with the van life or the motorhoming community. The kind of people I think that ride bikes, certainly that ride bikes and go touring or go off on adventures, are the kind of people that are fun to have a coffee with. I mean, sure, you're not going to be best friends with everybody, but they're fun to meet, and you can meet some incredible people. And I love that. I love how friendly the majority of people are, and just the spirit of adventure that bikers have. I also love that you're so much closer to the environment that you're in. I mean, yes, literally with the weather, but also the smells of a place or people waving to you on the side of the road, or, you can just see more. I feel you see more on a bike than you do in a car or in a van, and you get more of a feel for a place when you explore it. Hairpin bends going up a mountain, they mean more, I think, on a bike. The memories are sharper on a bike, maybe because you're paying more attention, I don't know. But that's what I love so much about motorbike touring and travel. Even if you're going down the same road you've ridden around God knows how many times, it just feels fun. And I love that. I love that. I'm totally hooked on motorbiking. So that's how I got into biking and what I love so much about it. Please do drop me a comment below and tell me what you ride and why you love it so much and why you like biking. I'd love to get to know you a little bit better. If you're planning on doing some motorbike adventures of your own, you might find either of these videos useful. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you on the next video. Bye.